The Galactic Military Academy sat on a planet called Velther Prime. It was the biggest and most famous military school in the whole galaxy. Every year, thousands of young beings from hundreds of different worlds came here to learn how to fight, how to lead, and how to protect their people. The Academy had seen many strange and powerful students over the years. There were the Krillians, tall insect-like creatures with hard shells that could stop bullets. There were the Mindari, small purple beings who could read minds and move things without touching them. There were the Drokan, massive warriors with 4 arms and skin like stone. But none of them had ever scared the Academy like Cadet Thurton. His real name was Zorth Kell, but nobody called him that anymore. The testing officers had given him a number instead of using his name. They did this because when they tested him on the first day, he broke every record the Academy had ever kept. The strength test machine broke when he punched it. The speed test showed numbers that the officers thought were mistakes. The tactical thinking test gave him a perfect score, something that had never happened before. Even the test for mental power showed that Zoreth had abilities that the officers could not measure. After seeing these results, the testing officers did not know what to say. One of them, an old Krillian named Captain Vex, looked at the broken machines and the impossible numbers on the screens. He shook his head slowly. "This is not possible," Captain Vex said. "These numbers cannot be real." But they were real. Zorth Kell was real. And now he was a student at the Academy. Zoreth was a Vexorian. Once, his people had been one of the most powerful races in the galaxy. They were warriors of legend. Stories said that a single Vexorian could destroy an entire army. Stories said that their anger could crack mountains and their roar could stop hearts. But the Vexorians were gone now. 7 years ago, a wandering black hole had come to their star system. It had swallowed their sun, their planets, and their moons. Billions of Vexorians had died in moments. Zoreth was the only one left. He had been on a trade ship, traveling to another system when his world died. He had watched from the ship's window as everything he knew and loved disappeared into the darkness. Now, at 19 years old by human counting, he walked through the halls of the Galactic Military Academy alone. He was nearly 8 feet tall, with skin as black as space itself. His skin seemed to eat light, making him look like a walking shadow. He had 4 eyes, all of them glowing red like dying stars when he walked through the corridors. Other students ran away. They pressed themselves against the walls. Some of them hid in rooms until he passed. Nobody looked at him directly. Nobody spoke to him. Zoreth understood why they were afraid. He looked like something from a nightmare. His claws were long and sharp enough to cut through metal. His teeth were pointed like knives. When he spoke, his voice was so deep that it made the floor shake. But inside, Zoreth was not what they thought he was. Inside, he was just a scared young man who had lost everything. He was alone in a galaxy that saw him only as a monster. On his first day at the Academy, Zoreth walked into the cafeteria to get food. The large room was full of students from many different worlds. They were talking and laughing, eating strange foods and sharing stories from their home planets. When Zoreth entered the room, everything stopped. Every conversation ended. Every face turned toward him. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then the students began to move. They picked up their trays and their bags. They left their seats. They walked toward the exits, keeping their eyes on the floor, trying not to attract his attention. In less than 1 minute, the cafeteria was empty. Zoreth stood alone in a room meant for 500 people. He got his food from the serving machines. He sat down at a table by himself. He ate in silence, surrounded by empty chairs and the quiet hum of the lights above. This happened every day for 3 weeks. Commander Voss was the leader of the Academy. He was an old Trellian with blue scales and wise golden eyes. He had led armies in 3 wars, He had trained thousands of the galaxy's best soldiers. But Zorath Kell worried him in a way that nothing had before. Not because he was afraid of the Vexorian. Commander Voss had faced death many times. He did not fear much anymore. What worried him was what he saw in the security camera feeds. Every night, Voss watched the recordings from around the academy. He saw Zorath walking alone through empty halls. He saw Zorath eating alone in empty rooms. He saw Zorath sitting in his quarters, staring at nothing, for hours at a time. "He is suffering," Voss said to his assistant. Lieutenant Mora. Lieutenant Mora was a Fenari, a fish-like creature with silver skin and large dark eyes. She looked at the screen showing Zorath alone in his room. "With respect, Commander," she said, "he terrifies everyone. The other cadets are scared to even look at him. What can we do?" "Fear is a natural response," Voss replied. "But it is also a prison. It keeps others away from him, yes, but it also keeps him trapped in loneliness. We need someone who is not afraid. Someone who can see past what he looks like to who he actually is. Does such a person exist?" Commander Voss did not answer. He was not sure. That night, Zorath sat in his dark quarters and held a small device in his massive hand. The device projected a picture made of light. In the picture was a family. A Vexorian father with kind eyes. A Vexorian mother with a gentle smile. 3 small Vexorian children, all of them laughing at something the viewer could not see. His family. All gone now. All dead. A tear rolled down Zorath's black cheek. It glowed amber, the color of Vexorian grief. He put the picture away and lay down on his bed. It was too small for him, like everything at this academy. Like everything in this galaxy. Nothing was built for Vexorians anymore. Nothing needed to be. He was the last one. Zorath closed his 4 red eyes and tried to sleep. In his dreams, he was home again. In his dreams, his family was alive. In his dreams, he was not a monster. He was just a son, a brother, a child who was loved. When he woke up, the dreams faded. The cold reality returned. He was alone. He would always be alone. But Zorath did not know that the next transport ship was already on its way to the academy. He did not know that on that ship was a young human woman with copper-colored hair and warm brown eyes. He did not know that walking beside her was a 7-foot-tall robot with a surprisingly kind voice. He did not know that everything was about to change. The colony world of Area 4 was dying. Governor Claire Bennett stood at the window of her office and looked out at the city of New Providence. The streets were empty. The markets were closed. The playgrounds where children once laughed were silent. A sickness had come to their world, and it was killing them slowly. 3 months ago, a strange disease had appeared in the farming villages outside the city. At first, the doctors thought it was just a bad cold. People coughed and had fevers. They stayed in bed for a few days and then got better. But the disease changed. It grew stronger. It attacked the lungs and made it hard to breathe. The old and the young were hit the hardest. Claire turned away from the window as Dr. Nathan Cole entered her office. He looked tired. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, and his white coat was wrinkled. He had been working day and night for weeks, trying to find a cure. "How bad is it today?" Claire asked. Nathan sat down heavily in a chair. He rubbed his face with his hands before speaking. "We lost 15 more people last night. The hospital is full. We have patients lying in the hallways because there are no more beds. And the medicine we have is not working." Claire felt her heart sink. Iridia 4 had been her home for 20 years. She had come here as a young woman, full of hope and dreams. She had watched the colony grow from a small settlement to a city of 80,000 people. They had built schools and hospitals. They had farms that grew food and factories that made everything they needed. They were proud of what they had created so far from Earth, but pride could not stop a disease. What do we need? She asked. Nathan pulled out his tablet and showed her a list. We need vaccines that we cannot make here. We need medicine that fights this specific virus. We need doctors and nurses who know how to treat this kind of sickness. We need breathing machines and medical supplies. We need things that only Earth can provide. Claire looked at the list for a long time. Asking Earth for help felt like admitting failure. For 40 years, the colonists of Viridia 4 had worked hard to be independent. They did not want to rely on their home world. They wanted to prove that humans could survive and grow on distant planets without always running back to Earth for help. But people were dying. Children were dying. And Claire knew that her pride was not worth more than their lives. Send a message to Earth, she said quietly. Tell them we need help. The message was sent through the quantum relay network that connected human colonies across the galaxy. It traveled from station to station, moving faster than any ship could fly. Within 6 hours, it reached the headquarters of United Space Command on Earth. Admiral Patricia Dunn was in her office in Geneva when her aide brought her the message. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had served in the Space Command for 30 years and had seen many things. She had fought pirates in the asteroid belt. She had negotiated peace with 3 alien races. She had sent young men and women into battle and had written letters to their families. When they did not come home, she read the message from Viridia 4 twice. The words were simple and direct. The colony was sick. People were dying. They needed medical aid. Commander Lucas Grant, she called to her aide. Pull up everything we have on the Kepler sector. Lucas was a young officer with brown hair and a serious face. He worked quickly, bringing up maps and reports on the large screen in the Admiral's office. Viridia 4 is our most distant colony, he said. Population of 80,000. They export quantum crystals that we use in our faster-than-light engines. The colony has been self-sufficient for decades. Patricia nodded. She already knew all of this, but something was bothering her. She had been reading intelligence reports for weeks about strange activity near the Kepler sector. Ships had been seen moving in the darkness between stars. Signals had been detected that did not belong to any human vessel. Show me the threat assessment, she ordered. The screen changed to show a star map covered with red dots. Each dot represented a ship from the Thrall Dominion, an alien empire that had been watching humanity with hungry eyes for years. The Thrall were not friends. They had attacked human ships before. They had raided mining stations. They believed that the strong should take from the weak, and they saw humanity as weak. The Thrall have been gathering ships near the Kepler sector, Lucas said. Our analysts believe they may be planning something. Patricia studied the map. Viridia 4 sat right in the middle of the Thrall activity. The colony had the largest supply of quantum crystals outside the Sol system. If the Thrall learned that the colony was weakened by disease, they might see it as an easy target. She made her decision quickly. Patricia Dunn had not become an admiral by waiting for problems to solve themselves. Contact Medical Command, she said. Tell them to prepare emergency supplies for 80,000 people. Vaccines, medicine, breathing machines, everything they need. Load it all onto the hospital ship Hope's Light. Lucas nodded and began typing on his tablet. Contact Supply Command. Patricia continued. I want care packages for every family on that colony. Food, clean water, clothing, medical supplies. Loaded onto 2 supply frigates. Yes, Admiral. Patricia paused for a moment. She looked at the red dots on the map, at the Thrall ships waiting in the darkness. Then she looked at the blue dot that was Viridia 4, where 80,000 humans were fighting for their lives. Contact Starfighter Command, she said finally. Tell them to scramble the 77th Combat Wing, full squadron. 12 fighters. They will escort the convoy to Viridia 4 and remain there until further notice. Lucas looked up from his tablet with surprise. Admiral, the colonists only asked for medical aid. Patricia turned to face him. Her eyes were hard but not unkind. They asked for help, Commander. And when humans ask for help, we do not send half measures. We do not calculate the cost. We send everything we have. She walked to the window and looked out at the city of Geneva below. Somewhere out there, across the vast emptiness of space, 80,000 people were waiting and hoping. Prepare the convoy, Patricia said. They leave in 12 hours. That night, the hospital ship Hope's Light rose from the shipyard in Earth orbit. It was a massive vessel, painted white with red crosses on its sides. Behind it came 2 supply frigates loaded with enough food and supplies to last a colony for months. And surrounding them all, flying in tight formation, were 12 starfighters of the 77th Combat Wing. On Viridia 4, Governor Claire Bennett received word that Earth had responded to her message. She had asked for medicine and doctors. She had hoped for maybe one ship with basic supplies. Earth was sending her a fleet. She did not know yet about the Thrall ships waiting in the darkness. She did not know that her colony was in danger from more than just a disease. But she knew one thing for certain. Earth had not forgotten them, and that was enough to give her hope. The convoy traveled through space for 16 days. Inside the hospital ship Hope's Light, Dr. Catherine Wells worked without rest. She was a small woman with dark hair and tired eyes, but her hands never shook when she held a needle or a scalpel. She had been a doctor for 20 years, first in the hospitals of Mars, then in the medical ships that served the outer colonies. She had seen death many times, but she had never stopped fighting it. Her team of 40 doctors and nurses worked beside her in the ship's laboratories. They were making vaccines. The disease on Viridia 4 was new, something that had never been seen before. It had grown from the alien plants and animals of the colony world, and Earth medicines would not work against it. So Catherine and her team had to create new medicine from scratch. How are we doing? Catherine asked her assistant, a young nurse named Samuel Drake. Samuel checked his tablet. We have 30,000 doses ready. Another 20,000 will be done before we arrive. The rest we can make on the planet. Good. What about the breathing machines? All working. We have enough for 500 patients at once. Catherine nodded and turned back to her work. Every dose of vaccine they made could save a life. Every hour mattered. In the fighters that flew beside the hospital ship, the pilots of the 77th Combat Wing kept watch. Their leader was Squadron Leader Daniel Price, a man of 34 years with calm eyes and steady hands. He had been flying starfighters since he was 22. He had fought in 3 battles against the Thrall and had won them all. His pilots trusted him with their lives. His wingman was Lieutenant Maria Santos, a woman with quick reflexes and a sharp tongue. She flew her fighter like it was part of her body, moving through space with a grace that other pilots could only dream of. Shepard lead, this is Shepard 2. Maria's voice came through the radio. I am picking up some strange readings ahead. There is something blocking our long-range sensors. Daniel checked his own instruments. She was right. There was interference, like static on old television. It made it hard to see what was waiting for them at Viridia 4. It might be solar radiation, Daniel said. The star in this system is known to be active. Maybe, Maria replied. But it feels wrong to me. Daniel trusted Maria's feelings. She had saved his life twice by listening to her instincts. Keep watching it. Report any changes. Yes, sir. The convoy continued toward Viridia 4. The planet grew larger in their view screens, a beautiful world of purple forests and silver oceans. It looked peaceful from space, but Daniel knew that peace could be broken in an instant. On the planet below, Governor Claire Bennett waited at the landing field outside New Providence. She had gathered every working vehicle in the city. Trucks and buses and ambulances were lined up, ready to help unload the supplies and carry them to where they were needed. Nathan Cole stood beside her, looking up at the sky. They should be here soon. Claire nodded. Her hands were shaking, though she tried to hide it. She had not slept well in weeks. Every morning, she received reports of how many people had died in the night. Every evening, she visited the hospital and looked into the faces of the sick. She knew their names. She knew their families. And she knew that without help, many of them would not survive. A sound came from above, a deep rumble that grew louder and louder. Claire looked up and saw the ships breaking through the clouds. The hospital ship came first, huge and white, like a bird of hope descending from heaven. Behind it came the two supply frigates, their hulls painted with the symbols of Earth's cargo service. And around them all, moving in perfect formation, flew 12 starfighters. They sent fighters, Nathan said in wonder. They sent everything, Claire whispered. The ships landed one by one. The ground shook with their weight. Dust flew into the air and then settled again. And then the doors opened. Dr. Catherine Wells was the first to walk down the ramp of the hospital ship. She moved quickly, her medical bag in one hand and her tablet in the other. Behind her came her team, pushing floating containers filled with medicine and supplies. Claire walked forward to meet her. Dr. Wells, I am Governor Bennett. I cannot tell you how grateful we are. Catherine took her hand and shook it firmly. Save your thanks for later, Governor. We have work to do. How many sick? Over 2,000 in serious condition. Another 5,000 with lighter symptoms. Then, we start with the serious cases. Where is your hospital? Claire pointed toward the city. 10 minutes by vehicle. But the hospital is already full. Then we will set up more hospitals, Catherine said simply. We brought everything we need. Tents, beds, machines, medicine. We can treat your people wherever they are. The supply frigates opened their doors, and workers began unloading crates. There were thousands of them, each one labeled with its contents. Food, water, clothing, blankets, medicine, toys for children, books for adults. Everything a colony might need when facing hard times. Samuel Drake organized the workers into teams. Food supplies go to the warehouses. Medical supplies go straight to the hospital. Care packages go to the community center for distribution. Move quickly but carefully. These supplies are precious. Above them, the starfighters circled the colony in wide loops. Daniel Price looked down at the city below and saw the people gathering to watch. He saw children pointing at his fighter. He saw old men and women crying with relief. He saw a colony that had been losing hope suddenly find it again. Shepard Squadron, establish patrol pattern Alpha, he ordered. 2 fighters on each quadrant. Continuous coverage. I do not want anything coming near this colony without us knowing about it. Shepard 2? Copy, Maria replied. Shepard 3 through 12. Copy, came the voices of his other pilots. Daniel made one more pass over the city before taking his position in the patrol pattern. He did not know what the strange interference on their sensors meant. He did not know if the Thrall were watching from somewhere in the darkness. But he knew his job. Protect the colony. Protect the people. Whatever it took. In the streets of New Providence, the colonists began to receive their care packages. Each package contained food for a week, medicine for common illnesses, clean water tablets, and a small note that said, "From your family on Earth, you are not alone." A woman named Helen Parker opened her package and found a warm blanket inside. She had been cold for months because the power to her home had been cut to save energy. She wrapped the blanket around her shoulders and cried, Man named George Miller opened his package and found medicine for his daughter, who had been sick for weeks. The doctors had told him there was nothing they could do. Now, there was hope. A child named Lucy opened her package and found a stuffed animal, a small bear with soft fur. She had lost her own toys when her family had to leave their home. She hugged the bear tight and smiled for the first time in months. Governor Claire Bennett walked through the streets and watched her people receive their gifts. She saw the tears and the smiles. She heard the laughter and the prayers of thanks. And she felt something she had not felt in a long time, pride, not pride in herself or in her colony. Pride in humanity. Pride in a species that would send ships across 200 light years of space to help strangers. Pride in a people who would send vaccines and care packages and starfighters to protect the colony they had never seen. She looked up at the sky, where the starfighters still circled, keeping watch. "Thank you," she whispered to no one in particular. "Thank you for not forgetting us." Far above, Daniel Price continued his patrol. His sensors were still showing interference. Somewhere out there, something was watching. He could feel it in his bones, but for now, the colony was safe. The medicine was flowing. The people were being fed. And 12 fighters stood ready to defend them against whatever came next. It was enough. For now, it was enough. 3 days passed on Viridia 4. Dr. Catherine Wells had not slept more than 4 hours each night since arriving. She moved from patient to patient, checking their progress, adjusting their medicine, holding their hands when they were afraid. Her team worked beside her with the same dedication. They had come to save lives, and they would not stop until the job was done. The vaccination campaign was going well. 30,000 colonists had already received their shots. The mobile medical units traveled to the farming villages and the mining camps, bringing medicine to people who could not come to the city. The hospital tents were full of patients, but most of them were getting better. "We are winning," Samuel Drake said to Catherine one morning. "The death rate is dropping. The new cases are slowing down." Catherine allowed herself a small smile. "Do not celebrate yet. We still have 50,000 people to vaccinate. And the most serious patients are not out of danger." She walked through the main hospital ward, checking on the patients in the worst condition. An old man named William Roberts lay in one of the beds, breathing through a machine. He had been sick for 2 months, and his lungs were badly damaged. But his eyes were open, and he reached out to take Catherine's hand. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for coming." Catherine squeezed his hand gently. "Save your strength, Mr. Roberts. You are going to be fine." She hoped she was telling the truth. Outside the hospital, Governor Claire Bennett was organizing the distribution of supplies. The care packages had brought hope to the colony, but there was still much work to do. Homes needed repair. Power systems needed to be fixed. Schools needed to reopen so that children could learn again. "We can rebuild," she told Nathan Cole. "Now that the sickness is under control, we can focus on rebuilding." Nathan nodded, but his face was troubled. "Claire, have you noticed the fighters? They have been flying more patrols than before. And Squadron Leader Price has been asking questions about our defense systems." Claire frowned. "What kind of questions? Where our shelters are? How deep underground they go? How many people they can hold?" Nathan lowered his voice. "He asked me if we have any weapons." A cold feeling spread through Claire's stomach. Why would he ask that? "I do not know, but I think we should find out." They found Daniel Price at the temporary command center near the landing field. He was standing in front of a large screen, studying data with his pilots. His face was serious, and his jaw was tight. "Squadron Leader Price," Claire said. "May I speak with you?" Daniel turned to face her. "Governor." "Of course. What do you need?" "I need to know why you are asking about our defenses." I need to know why your pilots are flying extra patrols. I need to know what you are not telling me." Daniel was silent for a moment. He looked at his pilots, then back at Claire. Finally, he nodded. "Come with me," he said. "There's something you need to see." He led her to the main display screen and pulled up a sensor map. The image showed Viridia 4 in the center, with the 3 moons of the system orbiting around it. But there was something else on the map. Behind the 3rd moon, hidden in its shadow, there were red dots. "What am I looking at?" Claire asked. "Ships," Daniel said grimly. "Thrall ships. We detected them yesterday when the interference cleared for a few minutes. There are at least 20 of them, maybe more. They are hiding behind the moon, waiting." Claire felt the blood drain from her face. "Waiting for what?" "For us to leave. For your defenses to drop. For the right moment to attack." Daniel pointed at the screen. "The Thrall have been watching your colony for months. They want your quantum crystals. They probably hoped the sickness would weaken you enough that they could walk in and take whatever they wanted. But we sent for medical aid, not military help." Admiral Dunn knew the Thrall were moving ships into this sector. "That is why she sent us." Daniel turned to face Claire directly. "Governor, I will not lie to you. We are 12 fighters against a fleet. If they attack, we cannot stop them completely, but we can slow them down. We can protect your people long enough for help to arrive." Claire's mind was racing. Her colony had faced many challenges over the years. Storms, earthquakes, crop failures. But they had never faced war. They were farmers and miners and builders, not soldiers. "What do we do?" she asked. "First, we prepare," Daniel said. "Get your people ready to move to the shelters at a moment's notice. Stock the shelters with food and water. Set up communication systems so you can stay in contact with us during the battle. And then we wait. And we hope they do not attack." Daniel's voice softened slightly. "But if they do, Governor, I promise you this. My pilots and I will fight for your colony as if it were our home. We will not let them take it without a fight." Claire looked at this man who had come from so far away to protect people he had never met. She looked at his pilots, young men and women who were willing to risk their lives for strangers. And she felt something shift inside her. "We will be ready," she said firmly. "Tell us what to do, and we will do it." The preparations began immediately. Throughout New Providence, loudspeakers announced the emergency procedures. Families packed bags with essential supplies. Parents explained to their children where to go if the alarm sounded. The elderly and the sick were moved to shelters closest to the hospital. Dr. Catherine Wells prepared her medical team for possible battle casualties. "If there is fighting, there will be injuries. We need to be ready for burns, broken bones, and worse. Set up a triage area near the main shelter entrance." Samuel Drake worked to secure the medical supplies. "We cannot let the medicine fall into enemy hands. If the Thrall take the vaccines, they will destroy them. They do not want us to survive." In the command center, Daniel Price gathered his pilots for a briefing. "Listen carefully," he said. "The Thrall outnumber us badly. If they attack, we cannot win by fighting them head to head. We need to be smart. We need to be fast. We need to make every shot count." Lieutenant Maria Santos studied the tactical display. Their fleet is heavy on destroyers and cruisers. Slow ships with big guns. If we can get in close, we can hurt them before they can hit us. "Exactly," Daniel agreed. "We use our speed and our skill. We hit them hard, and then we run. We make them chase us while the colony gets to safety." Lieutenant Kevin Marsh, the youngest pilot in the squadron, raised his hand. "Sir, what if they have fighters of their own?" "Then we fight them too," Daniel said simply. "The Thrall are good pilots, but we are better. We have trained for years. We have fought them before, and we have something they do not have. What is that, sir? Daniel looked at each of his pilots in turn. We have something to protect. The Thrall fight for conquest. They fight for power. We fight for those people down there. For the children and the old people and the families who just want to live in peace. That makes us stronger than any weapon. The pilots nodded. They understood. They were not just soldiers. They were guardians. That night, Claire Bennett stood on the roof of the administration building and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, hidden in the darkness, an enemy fleet was waiting. Somewhere out there, her colony's fate was being decided by forces beyond her control. But she was not alone. In the sky above her, she could see the lights of the Starfighters as they made their patrols. 12 brave souls standing between her people and destruction. She closed her eyes and made a silent prayer. Not for victory, not for safety, just for courage. Courage for her people. Courage for the pilots. Courage for whatever was coming next. The night was quiet. The stars were bright. And somewhere in the shadows of the third moon, the Thrall fleet began to move. The attack came at dawn. Daniel Price was in his cockpit when the alarms started screaming. His sensors, which had been clouded by interference for days, suddenly cleared. And what they showed him made his blood run cold. All pilots, scramble! He shouted into his radio. Enemy fleet incoming. This is not a drill. The Thrall ships poured around the edge of the third moon like a wave of darkness. There were more than they had expected. 34 ships in total. Destroyers with heavy guns. Cruisers with thick armor. And at the center of the formation, a massive command ship that could only belong to a Thrall warlord. Daniel's fighter roared into the sky, and his squadron formed up around him. 12 against 34. The numbers were bad. The odds were worse. But Daniel had made a promise, and he intended to keep it. Shepherd Squadron, attack formation Delta, he ordered. We hit them fast and hard. Do not let them get past us to the colony. Shepherd 2, ready, Maria Santos replied, her fighter sliding into position on his wing. Shepherd 3 through 12. Ready, came the voices of his other pilots, on the ground below. The evacuation sirens wailed through the streets of New Providence. People ran from their homes, carrying children and helping the elderly. The shelters filled quickly, just as they had practiced. Governor Claire Bennett stood at the entrance to the main shelter, counting heads and directing traffic. Keep moving, she shouted. Do not stop. Everyone inside. Dr. Catherine Wells was in the hospital, organizing the transfer of patients. The most critical cases could not be moved to the shelters. They would have to stay where they were and hope the building could protect them. Samuel, get the mobile patients to the emergency bunker, she ordered. I will stay here with the ones who cannot move. I am not leaving you, Samuel said firmly. That is an order, nurse. Samuel hesitated, then nodded. He began helping patients onto stretchers, his movements quick but gentle. In the sky above, the first shots were fired. Daniel dove his fighter straight at the lead Thrall destroyer. His targeting computer locked on, and he squeezed the trigger. Bright blue plasma bolts ripped through space and slammed into the enemy ship's shields. The shields flickered and held. Shields are strong, he reported. Going for another pass. Maria was right beside him. She fired 2 missiles at the same destroyer. They hit just as Daniel's plasma bolts struck again. This time, the shields collapsed. The destroyer's hull tore open, and fire exploded from the wound. Splash 1, Maria called out, but there was no time to celebrate. Return fire was already coming. Green energy beams cut through the space around them. Daniel rolled his fighter hard to the left, feeling the G-forces press against his body. A beam passed so close to his cockpit that he could feel the heat. Shepard 3, break right. He shouted. Lieutenant Kevin Marsh pulled his fighter into a sharp turn, just as a beam passed through where he had been a second before. Thanks, lead. That was close. The battle became chaos. 12 human fighters danced among 34 alien warships, striking and retreating, always moving, never staying still long enough to be targeted. The Thrall commanders were confused. They had expected the humans to run or to fight in predictable patterns. Instead, these pilots flew like they were part of the wind itself. On the command ship, Warlord Threekener watched the battle with growing anger. He was a massive creature, covered in scales the color of dark blood. His eyes burned with hatred for these small, fragile beings who dared to challenge his fleet. How are they doing this? He demanded. They are only 12. His tactical officer studied the displays. The human pilots are highly skilled, Warlord. Their fighters are smaller and faster than ours. They are using our own ships as cover, hiding behind our destroyers and attacking from unexpected angles. Then destroy them. I want those fighters turned to dust. We are trying, Warlord. But every time we target one, another attacks from behind. Threekener slammed his fist against his throne. Fine. Ignore the fighters. Send the fleet to the planet. If we cannot destroy them in space, we will destroy everything they are trying to protect. The Thrall formation shifted. Half of the remaining ships broke off from the battle and accelerated toward Varia 4. Daniel saw it happening. They are making a run for the colony. Blue Wing, intercept. 4 fighters peeled away from the main battle and dove toward the approaching Thrall ships. Latitude Amy Ford led the wing, her voice calm despite the danger. Blue Wing engaging. We will hold them as long as we can. Amy's fighter streaked toward the lead cruiser, her weapons blazing. She hit the ship's engines, crippling its thrust. The cruiser slowed, blocking the path of the ships behind it. 1 down, she reported. Engaging second target. But there were too many. A destroyer locked onto Amy's fighter and fired. She tried to dodge, but the beam caught her wing. Fire erupted from her engine, and her fighter began to spin. I am hit, Amy shouted. Losing control. Amy, eject. Daniel ordered. Negative. I can still fight. Just need to. Another beam hit her fighter. This time, the cockpit cracked. Amy's voice cut off in static. Amy? Amy, respond. Daniel's heart was pounding. He watched her fighter spiral downward, trailing smoke and fire. It crashed into the surface of the planet, far from the city. Blue 3 is down, Kevin's voice came through, heavy with grief. No ejection signal. Daniel forced himself to focus. He could not think about Amy now. He had to keep fighting. He had to protect the colony. All fighters form up on me, he ordered. We make our stand here. Nothing gets past us. The remaining 11 fighters gathered together and faced the Thrall fleet. The aliens had lost 8 ships, but they still outnumbered the humans badly. The command ship moved forward, its massive guns charging for a killing blow. Human pilots. Warlord Threekener's voice came over the open radio frequency. You have fought well, but this is over. Surrender now, and I will let you live. Continue to resist, and I will destroy you and everyone on that planet. Daniel opened his own channel. His voice was steady, without fear. Warlord, I have a counteroffer. Turn your fleet around and leave this system. Do that, and we will let you go. Stay, and we will destroy every ship you have. Threekener laughed. It was an ugly sound. You are only 11 fighters. What can you do against my fleet? Watch and learn. Daniel pushed his throttle to maximum. His fighter screamed toward the command ship, weapons firing. Maria flew beside him, matching his every move. The other pilots followed. forming a spear of human courage aimed at the heart of the enemy fleet. The battle that followed would be remembered for generations. The human pilots flew with a skill and bravery that the Thrall had never seen before. They wove between enemy ships, using them as shields against each other. They targeted weak points that the aliens did not even know they had. They fought not with desperation, but with purpose. By the time it was over, 16 Thrall ships were destroyed or disabled. The command ship had lost its main weapons and was venting atmosphere from a dozen holes in its hull. Warlord Threkener, for the first time in his life, gave the order to retreat. "This is not finished, humans," he snarled over the radio as his surviving ships fled toward open space. "We will return with more ships. We will burn your colony to ashes." Daniel watched them go. His fighter was damaged. His fuel was low. His friends were hurt and one was dead. But the colony was safe. "Let them come," he said quietly. "We will be here." On the ground, the colonists emerged from their shelters to see the sky clearing. The Thrall ships were gone. The Starfighters were returning home. Governor Claire Bennett looked up as Daniel's fighter passed overhead. She raised her hand in a silent salute. In her heart, she knew they had been saved, not just by medicine and supplies, not just by vaccines and care packages. They had been saved by 12 pilots who had risked everything for strangers, and one pilot who had given everything